Welcome to the Covert Narcissism Podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. Let me start with a message I recently received from a listener. She wrote to me, I'm curious if anyone ever tries to tell the covert narcissist what they are. Give them a quiz or a book or information. I know how ridiculous that might sound because they never think anything is wrong with them and they turn it back on us. But my husband has two narcissistic parents, and he can see it in them. That should make it easier, right? I hear the pain in her question. I hear the desperation of just wanting her husband to understand so that they together can heal. And I remember that stage so well for me. When I first started uncovering what was happening in my marriage, I was so desperate to understand it and I was so desperate to share it because I truly believed it would help us to heal. Welcome back to the Covert Narcissism Podcast, where we stop waiting for them to see it and we start seeing ourselves more clearly than ever. This space is for the ones who have spent years trying to make it work, trying to be enough, trying to make sense out of the madness. And today's episode is for anyone who has ever asked themselves, can they ever see it? Can they ever change if I just say the right thing or find the right words? Now let's talk about that longing to wake them up. I remember when I finally sat across from a counselor who gently said to me, I think you might be dealing with narcissism here. But he continued and said, but narcissists, they don't ever change. And when he said those words, I pushed back with everything in me. I said that it can't be narcissism because he can change. I just need to find the right words, the right help, the right language so that everything will just then click. And I truly believed that. I truly believed that if I found the way to get my husband to understand this, that we together could heal. I believed in him. I believed in us. And I believed that if I was finally seeing the pattern, then surely he could too. You know, it felt like I had finally downloaded the right software, the right truth, and I was ready to install it into our relationship. All he had to do was click update and then we could move forward. But the progress bar, on a computer, that progress bar, it never moved. And that moment, that hope where we can, share this information with our partner is where so many people get stuck. Because once you understand, once you name it, it feels like you should be able to solve it. This feels like the problem. You finally get the right answers. You get the instructions on how to fix this, and you've got the insight, the language, the tools. You're ready to move forward. But they're still frozen on the home screen. They don't budge. I remember as I read about covert narcissism, the words literally jumped off the page. I mean, they just slapped me in the face. I'd read one sentence in the middle of a paragraph, and it was so true. In my life, it just was so true that the words literally jumped off the page and grabbed me. Have you ever read words that as you're reading them, you know deep inside of you that these words are already true? It's like this long lost truth that's hidden deep inside of you, and you already know it's true, you just didn't have the words for it. I also knew that if we were ever going to fix this, then my husband needed these words too. He needed to know what we were facing, where the struggle lied, and that there was help to be found. So, yes, I took those steps. I tried to explain it to my husband. I told him about narcissism. I even avoided the word narcissism, but I told him about it. I told him those words that were jumping off the page at me. I showed him books. At this point, then we did end up talking about even covert narcissism. And I showed him books and I explained the traits and I shared examples. I wasn't doing this to hurt him. No, I wasn't doing it to label him or to back him into a corner or to prove how much he was wrong. No, I did it because I was so desperate to save our marriage. It was a final desperate attempt to help because I knew that if we didn't face this, that our marriage would not survive. I so desperately wanted him to understand what was happening, how I was feeling, and why I was feeling this way. I wanted to do everything in my power to give him a chance. I didn't want to walk away. I didn't want divorce. But if we couldn't get this out in the open, if we couldn't heal these wounds, I knew that divorce was where we would land. I knew if this system couldn't be updated, it was going to crash. So I did what so many of us do. I pressed the retry many times. Try to say it this way, try to say it that way, show him this video, show him that meme, anything I could do. And you already know what happened next is everything backfired. He didn't say, "Oh, wow, that really makes sense. That rings true. I could see that. I didn't understand this before. I didn't hear those words." He didn't say, "Hey, thank you for bringing this to me. Let's work on this together." No, he shut down. He shut down in defensiveness or sulking, and then he attacked with blame and more defensiveness. He deflected, he avoided, he dodged. He made me the problem. Every time I tried to explain, it was like another failed update attempt, error message, system overloaded, and eventually emotional shutdown. Well, this is the part that hurts the most. Not just that they won't change, but they even use your attempt to help them as one more reason to hurt you. So let's talk about why this happens. Covert narcissism is not just about manipulation. I've talked about this a lot on this podcast. But every time I say it, I think I put it in a little bit different words so it can ring a little more true in what we're discussing and what we're talking about. It's not just about manipulation. It's not even just about control. It's about protection. A deep, subconscious, ironclad wall built to protect their fragile ego. And when you try to show them who they are, even when it comes from a deep, genuine, and compassionate place, it's not received as insight or an opportunity for growth, a chance to draw closer together. No, it's received as a threat. It's received as an assault. They just can't see it any other way. Even if you send the most beautifully written article, from your heart, the most relatable podcast episode, the most respectful and compassionate explanation, it is not received as an opportunity for growth. It's received as an attack. Their defense mechanisms kick in before the words even land. So, if they've named narcissism in others, even if they've acknowledged that their father, brother, or boss is narcissistic, when it comes to them, that mirror, that self reflection, is just too painful. The moment it's held up, they deflect, rage, cry, collapse, or disappear. And it's all part of the same defense. So, yes, I get the temptation. I understand the logic where you're thinking if they can see it out there in others, then they can see it in themselves, right? You've worked so hard to download the truth into your own life. You are self reflecting and seeing your side of all of this and doing all the work. And it feels like if they just accepted that update, if they could just finally click the right buttons, then everything would finally shift. But narcissistic defenses are coded in such a way that the moment you try to install this new version, the system crashes and blames you for the error. That's just how narcissistic defense works. The lady who wrote this into me, she also said, "He's a good person inside. I know he's in there. I feel like he's one of the very few who could wake up." Boy, if you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. I felt it too. I held on to it for years. The belief that maybe he's not like the others, that he can wake up, that he does care enough about our kids, our marriage, our future, and he could finally face the truth. I so desperately wanted to believe in him, and I know I'm not alone in that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to believe that. This is hope, and the hope is not foolish. It's not weakness. It's love, it's care, and it's real. But it's also dangerous because it is often the very thing that keeps you stuck. Because the truth is, even if that person, that good person, is buried in there somewhere, if they refuse to look, to listen, to take responsibility, to self reflect, then that goodness that's inside them stays buried and the damage continues to you.
All right, steak lovers, this one's for you. You know that moment when you slice into a perfectly cooked, melt in your mouth steak? Pure magic. And that's exactly what Heartland Steak Company delivers. Hand cut, Midwest raised, premium meat, straight to your door, because you deserve the best. Growing up in Kansas with a butcher for a stepfather, I learned what real quality beef looks like. When Heartland Steak Company sent me their steaks for my honest opinion, let me tell you, they absolutely delivered. They know their craft, and it showed in every single bite. Build your perfect steak box or grab a grill ready bundle. Either way, you're getting top tier flavor. And here's the best part: $25 off any order of $175 or more. Just use promo code WOMEN at checkout. So go ahead, treat yourself. Head to heartlandsteakco.com, load up your cart, and don't forget, promo code WOMEN gets you that $25 off.
You to your kids. This is what started shifting for me was not just the damage to me, but the way my kids were hurting around him and the way they were learning to live around him, to walk on eggshells, to silence themselves, to be smaller and withdrawn, to adapt to the meanest one in the home. I had lived that in front of them and they were living it too. And at some point, I had to stop. At some point, I had to change the dynamics here for my kids and for myself. I stopped trying to reboot the system and I started building a new system. I stopped trying to wake him up and I started waking myself up instead. Now, let me be clear here. People with narcissistic traits can change. I do hear stories of this happening, and I've witnessed some of it firsthand. Now, this is, narcissistic traits. We all have some narcissistic traits. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. Some of us have more than others. But just because you see narcissistic traits does not a narcissist make. And there are many people with narcissistic traits that can self reflect and can then work on themselves. That's the difference, okay? But if somebody's going to change, they don't change because someone else held up a mirror to them. If change happens, it happens because something inside of them breaks open, because they hit a wall that they can't deflect from, because they lose something they can't replace, because life brings them to their knees, just like it did to you. And then you choose to do the hard, humbling work of self reflection. It's rare, okay, if this ever changes in somebody who is, heavily narcissistic. It's real work. It's tough, but it has to come from them, not from you. You cannot be the driving force behind their change, and that there is anybody in your life. You cannot be the driving force for someone else's change. You're not wrong for hoping. You're not wrong for wanting it. You're not even wrong for trying. It's okay. You're not wrong for wanting to believe that your partner could be that exception. But it is okay to stop hoping, and in fact, you might need to, and just watch and let them do the work or don't. I know how hard it is to let go of that idea that maybe they'll finally see it, that maybe your one last effort will be the thing that cracks him open or her open. But if you've tried 100 different ways, why in the world do we think 101 will be that one? And even if 101 was going to be that one, it's still not your fault because you've tried the 100 ways. You've tried, you've explained, you've reached out, and nothing ever changes. The cycle continues. So let that be enough for you to stop being the driving force or trying to be the driving force. I once read a saying that said, "You don't need to keep lighting yourself on fire to keep other people warm." And I really kind of like that. In fact, it made me kind of chuckle out loud because I have lit myself on fire many, many times to keep the people around me warm. You don't need to keep putting yourself on the front line of someone else's battle. You don't need to keep handing over your peace in the name of one more attempt. You've already done more than most people would. You've loved, you've tried, you've hung in there, you've explained, you've opened your heart. You've seen the best in someone who didn't protect the best in you. It's okay to stop trying to save them and start saving yourself. And when they turn it back on you and say, "You gave up on us," you only need one very simple response. "Yes, I did. You're right." You don't need to defend this or hide it or fight against it. You don't need to explain it away. You have fought long enough, fought to be seen, to be heard. You've fought to connect and grow with this person. And if you have reached the end of that fight, it is okay to say, "Yes, I did give up on us." Now, there's a whole laundry list of reasons why. There's a whole, history of all the memories and all the explanations and all the things. That's okay. You don't even need all of that anymore. At this point, you just say, "Yes, I did." So if you're still asking yourself, can they ever see it? Here's something to picture. You know that feeling when your phone says there's a software update available and you click download and it gets stuck at 3% and it just stays there? It's very frustrating, when that happens and you want your phone, every time there is an update on my phone, I'm a little nervous to hit the download button to get it to go because I'm like, how long is this one going to take? And I need my phone, all right? But you hit the button, it gets to 3%, and then it sits there. You try everything. You check your Wi-Fi. You restart your phone. You plug it in overnight. You click retry over and over again because surely it just needs this little nudge. You're patient. You're optimistic. You believe in this update, but days go by. And then months go by. Then the little wheel just keeps spinning, frozen in place, draining your battery in the background while you wait. That's what it's like hoping for a covert narcissist to one day see it, hoping they'll finally connect the dots, download the insight, install empathy, and reboot with this new emotional software. But if it hasn't budged in years, if every update attempt crashes and blames you for the glitch, then you're not looking at a system that's updating. You're looking at one that is refusing to change. And the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your kids is to stop staring at that screen. Stop putting your life on hold waiting for someone else's growth. Listen to that again. Stop putting your life on hold waiting for someone else's growth. Because your peace, your healing, your freedom, they don't need to wait for them to wake up. You're not broken because they can't see it. You're not cruel for walking away from this glitch. You are wise for recognizing when it's time to upgrade your own life, not theirs. Now, if you're sitting in that stuck place, tired of hitting retry, wondering if it's finally time to move forward, please know that today might not be the day you decide whether or not you're leaving or staying. And that's fine. That's not what this is about. But today is absolutely the day you decide to heal. It is time to look inside yourself with care and compassion. Take your mental energy, your emotional energy that you have been pouring into them and put it into yourself. Work through the pain and the confusion. Protect yourself from further damage. It is time to heal. And if you need help with that journey, please reach out to me. Just a few sessions will catapult you onto your own path of healing, and you have no time to waste. Find the path that is right for you. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism Podcast, where we break apart the insidious nature of these incredibly destructive and infinitely frustrating individuals. If you are caught up in this crazy-making relationship and drowning in self-doubt, guilt, or rumination, please reach out to me anytime. I offer individualized live coaching in both group and individual settings. We can find the right program for you. You do not need to go through this alone. You can find all of that information on my website at covertnarcissism.com. You can also reach out to me by email at Renee, Renee, at covertnarcissism.com. I do look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Remember, I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I am a coach, and you are a survivor. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.